Welcome to Hit Podcast, H.I.T, Human Resources, Insurance, and Technology. I'm your host, Toby Kennedy. Thank you so much for joining us this week, Tuesday, just like every week, Tuesday. We are dropping into your feed with what we hope is a bite-sized, digestible, fun, and engaging conversation in the space. We're trying to bring you all the relevant news. This week's episode is sponsored by Montage Insurance Solutions. And with all that being said, let's jump right into your weekly hit. For this week's hit, I'm very excited. It's a hit chat, a chit chat. We have Dr. Mark Hatch. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Toby, thank you so much for letting me join you.
Yes, Dr. Hatch, you are a fella that is not only an adjunct professor at Pepperdine, not only someone that has been in leadership at HealthNet, at Kinko's. You have founded many companies, been a part of many exciting companies. It's my understanding they call you the Godfather of the maker movement. And I personally had the pleasure of having you out in my role as an executive here at Montage to do some coaching for us. And you talked about organizational purpose. And I thought that was fascinating and incredibly relevant for our audience. Do you mind if you just kind of talk a little bit about your journey to this conversation surrounding organizational purpose and what your thoughts are behind some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was drawn to purpose from an early age. It's exciting to be focused on something that's important, that's bigger than who you are. Yeah. And I had a fairly traditional kind of corporate type of a role. Did the MBA, worked in product development and so forth. Had my successes and failures. But I had an opportunity post Kinko's to work in the maker movement, and I wrote a book and so forth. And
no big deal.
It was almost like a defensive. Somebody needed to write the book, and I knew the other leaders in the movement, and they weren't. So I stepped in and tried to do my part. And it's quite humbling. It did quite well.
Yes, sir.
Our shops did quite well also. Like 10,000 people were using our various shops around the world.
That's awesome.
But what I discovered was that my personal sense of satisfaction was much deeper there than it had been in any other role I had been. And it was there because of this global sense of purpose. We were democratizing access to the tools of the Industrial Revolution. And thousands of companies were launched, and nonprofits, and kids learned all about STEAM and STEM. And it was really it was a joy to be part of that. And then coming out of that, I decided to study, what does purpose actually mean for an organization, or what can it mean? And I was kind of pleasantly surprised. It has a much deeper and bigger role in creating performance at all levels.
I loved this.
Personal performance, corporate performance, team performance, community performance, ESG, you name it. If you've tapped into that organizational purpose, it puts you really in a completely different playing field. And everything I do now is tied at some level to helping organizations drive organizational purpose.
Yeah, I think that we talked for hours about this exact topic. And to be honest with you, every second of it was fascinating. And I could spend all day on this topic with you and honestly wish I could. And maybe we'll have you back in future episodes. Today, what I wanted to talk specifically about was, I know you've been in leadership at multiple different junctures at your career, and you're currently serving as a fractional CEO for a few different organizations. One of them I thought would be incredibly germane to our audience, and it has to do a little bit with this conversation about organizational purpose and a little bit about the organization that you're now with, if you don't mind me kind of teeing you up in that way.
Sure. Yeah, so I recently joined BeneApp Inc., and it's a software services platform that solves a problem in human resources. It's something of a mundane problem in that the HRIS system doesn't always sync up with the carrier invoice data.
Right.
And there's leakage and all kinds of things that go on as a result. And you may ask, what does that have to do with purpose? It's really simple. The human resources department is one of the most important departments in an organization. Yeah. And you don't get enough credit and so forth. And often as a result, at least in my experience, including running HR organizations, is that you get sucked into a lot of lower value types of activities just because they have to get done.
Right.
They absolutely have to get done.
Right.
And so what I was intrigued with when I was invited to join this startup is that though it doesn't drive purpose per se, what it does do is it will enable HR professionals to tangibly reduce the non-value added work, be able to show the money they're saving, and then hopefully be able to reinvest that in organizational purpose. So really, we're trying to create more time for an organization to focus on things that matter.
What better mission could you have? And so what I'm hearing you say is, and we all know this, that when HR has their system of record, whoever it is, Workday, ADP, Paycom, whoever that system of record is, that houses the eligibility. Who's supposed to be on Kaiser, who has dependents, who whatever. Ideally, that feeds over to the insurance carriers, and ideally,
yeah, in theory, right?
Your insurance companies are supposed to have the exact same eligibility.
And in theory, your kids are in bed by 9 p.m., right? And your spouse is going to be on time for dinner.
Yes, and so because that's not always true, HR winds up doing audits. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Or ideally should be doing audits.
Or should be. And so we've talked to, a number of people in this space, CFOs included, where they go, well, you know what, I'm not sure we're doing that every month.
Yeah.
I know we should, but hey, we got the quarterly meetings coming up. We're rolling out the new benefits offering, and it's going to take hours and hours, sometimes more, to get this right. So this is one of those things that gets pushed off to the next month, and that can actually cost the organization a lot of money.
Yeah. Meaning failing to do the audit and failing to recognize that perhaps so-and-so who was supposed to be termed is still on the bill. And obviously the insurance companies are only going to go back so far. And so now you're paying month in and month out for someone that had left.
Yeah, or worse cases, somebody's not getting the health benefits that they need this month when they should be, or they didn't get them on COBRA in time, and you're now open up to potentially some significant litigation.
Yeah, or they did, and they're failing to do the payroll deduction, right?
Yeah, exactly. They're not getting,
Right. So they're not recouping the money on the payroll side, or they're not on the bill. Yeah. So I think like you're saying, it's a huge problem. HR knows it's a problem. Ideally, they're auditing. It takes a ton of time, and if they're not auditing, that's not a good thing.
And this is perfect for what software does.
Right.
Robotic program automation is the technical term for it. Like being able to take data from one group, data from another, mix and match it, and make sure that it aligns correctly, highlighting the areas. This is what software is for. This is why we have software, so that we don't have to do this kind of stuff.
Amen. So this software then basically just performs these monthly audits.
That's right. So currently the service is, as we're rolling it out, we're doing everything for you. You send us the data, we merge it, we take a look at it, and then we send you a report back. Yep. Further down the road, it will be like automated, so you could be able to do it yourself.
Yeah. Okay. But still, it's a nice tool for the human resources department. Circling back to your org purpose sort of conversation for them to get back on organization.
It'll save you hours and hours and hours. It saves somebody hours and hours and hours of work, and that type of work is error prone because you're looking at spreadsheets and you're trying to match things. People get tired, yada yada yada. It's much better to have a machine do that kind of work than to have a human doing it.
Yeah, and then in theory, so not only are we getting the human error out of some of the auditing side, but in theory, what we're doing is taking these HR practitioners that probably have higher, bigger goals and allowing them to redeploy their time.
Yep.
Understood. Yeah. You guys are doing Lord's work. Is it, I'm sure the first question a lot of the audience is going to ask is from a pricing standpoint, is this cost prohibitive? Is that, what are we talking about?
Oh, not at all. It's a $500 setup fee, $3 PEPM, as they say. There's a Ernst & Young report, just in December, that suggested that the average annual cost that they discovered in their research was $139 per employee per year for errors.
And those are the guys that are auditing.
And those are the folks that are actually doing the work. Like they were already supposedly doing their work, and they still found that kind of activity. And so, ours is $36, $38 per person per year. This is a good deal. And what's nice again is we've got the data to be able to show your CFO or your whoever's in charge of the budget to say, hey, I can free up X number of hours a month to focus on what's important, reduce errors, and get us closer to where we need to be.
Yeah. And then in some instances, I know, for example, again, my day job with Montage, this is something we fund for our clients, or maybe a tech budget, or something that organizations can say, hey, do we have, not only is it going to save us money, so it's going to be worth it in the long run anyways, but we might even be able to pull from some vendors or some other places to pay for this too.
Yeah, you show a 200% return on investment in the first year, usually somebody in your finance department will agree.
The next question ideally will be if folks are looking to reach out or get a hold of you or Benny or have a further conversation surrounding this.
Oh, absolutely. They can send me a note at markh@BeneApp.com.
Mark with a K?
Mark with a K.
Mark with a KH. Thank you very much, Dr. Hatch. Like I said earlier, your work in the field of organizational purpose and your career dedicating professionals and organizations to striving for bigger and better, it's something that I personally, I'm not trying to be too big of a fanboy, but it's a heck of an honor to have you on.
Thank you. It's been an honor. It's been an honor to know you and to be here.
Thank you very much. And anyone interested in Benny, reach out. It's a wonderful auditing service. That is all the time we have for you this week on the HIT Podcast. And until next week, make this the best weekend.